All right, this very minute you are watching the sweat. We will do whatever we can to keep you here until 7 o'clock. Maybe I'll lose the pants.
Please don't.
You want Jessie to shave my back?
Please don't.
Done. It needs shaving too. But you name it, we'll do it because we love you.
That's not true. And all guys are gross, except for you. You are super gross.
Thanks,
okay?
partner.
But we do have some pretty tasty NBA and AHL segments on the program, getting you guys set and ready to rock for a packed Monday night slate.
Oh, boy. But first, it's not the Masters. It's not the U.S. Open, British, or PGA.
No.
But it's the next best thing. It's the players, and we have our golf gurus here to help us figure out the following odds. Trying to see if they're too high or too low for said tournament.
Okay, DK Live's Reed Fowler, Jeff Ulrich, and DFS expert Jeff Eisenband. Guys, let's start with Tiger Woods. After pulling out of the Arnold Palmer Invitational with an injury, he's plus 2,000 to win at TPC Sawgrass. That's the 5th best odds. Too high or too low, Ulrich?
I'm going to go too low because, look, he's played 3 times this year. I mean, he hasn't played enough. He's not ready to take on a field like this at an event that requires you to be at the top of your form. We've seen most of the winners of this event come in with just some fabulous form. Webb Simpson was just rolling last year when he came in here, put it together. Tiger Woods, even when he won in 2013, was rolling. He's played 3 times, and now he's coming back off a couple weeks with a neck injury. Plus 2,000 for me to get the win on Tiger. I just think you're pulling the trigger too early. I think you want to wait till Augusta and see how his form is then. For me, the win odds there, they're just they're too low.
Reed, how do you feel about this? Yeah, a little concerned there about that neck injury.
Yeah, we were talking earlier too, and when you pull out on a Monday for a neck strain, it's kind of interesting, right? You kind of go through the steps of trying to get back. If it was just a strain that, you go to the training room, you try to work that out. But on Monday, you said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm worried about the players, I'm worried about Augusta. So I get that, but that's the point. And to what Jeff said, it's too low, right? I mean, at this plus 2,000, he's only played a few times. There are guys that don't need it, like a Brooks or a Dustin. I don't think need that, multiple tournament history or recent form to do well here. But this is a course that's going to, it's going to require all facets of your game to be, on point. Tiger is, over the last 24 rounds, playing really well. That takes into account his Tour Championship win and some other tournaments that he's played in. But you just don't know. You have no idea with his injury, with Jason Day's injury. You just don't know. So too low for me at 20 to 1.
All right, plus 2,000, too high or too low, Eisenband?
He definitely is tempting us with those shorts on the range today, but I think it's too low. I think that, as the guys were saying, it's just he hasn't played well enough to this point, even before the injury to have earned these 5th best odds. And then on top of that, coming off the neck strain, I mean, there's guys below him who have won more since he's come back. It just doesn't make any sense. It's too low.
Okay, Brooks Koepka didn't even make the cut in Orlando at the API, but he's at plus 2,500 to win this weekend. Too high or too low, Reed?
I think this is too high. Like I just mentioned it, Brooks Koepka is one of these guys like a Francesco Molinari last week that doesn't need to be playing extremely well to do well the following week. And obviously we saw that missed cut where he didn't do well. He lost a ton of strokes through approach, through putting, what have you. But if you look at just what he's been able to do over the last few tournaments, like even though he lost 1.2 strokes through approach last week, he's a guy who doesn't need a ton, right? He doesn't need a ton to be working out in terms of where his game is at. And so a guy like Brooks, who we've seen do well through strokes gained approach, we've seen do well in courses that require you to putt well, he is a guy that, again, at his price tag and where he's coming in at plus 2,500, it's too high.
Jeff with a J, his 5th appearance, TPC Sawgrass, still chasing his first top 10 too.
Yeah, I think it's too high. I don't feel confident that he's going to win. I don't think this course sets up great for Brooks Koepka. The courses that you look at that he's won, types of U.S. Open courses, wide open courses where he can just kind of bomb it down there. And, TPC Sawgrass, a lot of precision. I don't love Brooks Koepka there, but I think this is too high when you consider that he's the number 3 player in the world and he was 1 shot away from winning at the Honda just 2 weeks ago.
Canadian Jeff, he walked off last year's T11 with a course record tying 63. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, no, let's not forget that. I think this is way too high. This is disrespect again. I mean, it's just Brooks Koepka. It's like, oh, he missed the cut once. Let's just juice up his odds. Okay, I think it's a great price for Brooks Koepka. I mean, he putts better on Bermuda. You mentioned the course record here last year. He just about won the Honda Classic, which when you're looking for course fits, PGA National is about as close as you're going to get to comparison to TPC Sawgrass. So the fact he just about won there, and now he's coming to TPC Sawgrass. I don't really care what he did last week. I mean, it was his third week in a row playing. If anything, it probably gives him a little more rest. So I think these odds are very good. I think they're too high for Brooks Koepka.
Well, in Honda in Mexico, he gained close to 10 strokes total through approach as well. So, I mean, you take his close to like more than 1.5 strokes losing through approach, but then gaining close to 10 total on those last 2 courses. Yeah, he's in great form.
Okay, Reed doing his homework here.
All right, guys, last weekend's winner, Francesco Molinari, sits at plus 2,500. Too high or too low, Eisenband?
You mean Francesco Molinari, the Italian Webb Simpson?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think these are too high. I think that just when you look at a guy like Francesco Molinari and what he's done the last 2 years, and in terms of his consistency in the game that he plays, I think TPC Sawgrass, I talked about the precision that's needed. He's a guy that I'm relying on. You don't need to hit the longest drives necessarily, Francesco Molinari. You just need to stay steady. You need to hit those approach shots into tight greens. And I think that bodes great for Francesco Molinari. I know last week I said I wasn't taking Keith Mitchell close to going back-to-back. Reed, I was wrong. He played great. And on top of that, I just think Molinari is a guy that when he got hot last year, he was hot every week. So I'm riding with him again.
Ulrich, are you going to ride with him again?
I was majorly sweating Keith Mitchell because there's some clips here, just me saying there's no chance of Keith Mitchell winning back-to-back. So that was a big sweat for me last week. Look, I think this number on Francesco Molinari is pretty much perfect. This guy just does not get enough respect, and I think this number is actually respecting what he's done over the last little bit. I mean, he's won big tournaments in Europe. He's won the Open Championship, and now he's won the Arnold Palmer Invitational with a final round 64. Like, he's got multiple top 10s at this event. There's no reason why Francesco Molinari can't win twice in a row at a Jeff said, at a venue that suits him to a T. I mean, this is exactly what you want for a guy who doesn't hit it that far, but is so good with his long irons, so good at keeping in the fairway off the tee. I think this price is perfect. Okay,
Reed, where you sit on this?
Yeah, these guys mentioned it. Molinari, a guy that when he gets on a hot streak, he's such a good ball striker. He's so acute with his irons and so precise with his irons that once he starts putting it really well, like he did, gaining almost 7 strokes at Arnold Palmer, he's going to win. I mean, shooting a 64 on Sunday and sinking that last putt over 40 feet just shows you how good this guy is, where he doesn't come in with much form or much buzz about him, and he just goes out and he wins that tournament. And we've seen it at the PGA Championship. We've seen it in other spots where he's done well in big areas. And the players, like these guys have mentioned, he kind of goes under the radar, but then at this 33-1 or this plus 3,300, you really like that number. I would like it a little bit more, obviously at plus 40, but at the same time, I mean, Molinari is one of the best ball strikers. And like I said, when he gets putting, when he gets his putting going, he's going to play well.
Yeah, I mean, he went into the API with no top 15s in his previous 6 starts, so probably why people weren't really talking about him.
Sleeping on him.
Ooh.
Phil Mickelson historically struggles at this tournament.
Yes.
Struggling last weekend, too, missing the cut at Bay Hill. Mr. Ulrich is plus 8,000, too high or too low for the 2007 Players Champion?
This is way too low. I mean, look, you don't want your player talking about skipping a tournament before he comes to the tournament. You just don't. Not at a venue like TPC Sawgrass. Phil does not like these Florida courses. There's too much water. There's too much requirement for precision and tactical natures around the course. That is not Phil Mickelson's game, okay? Like, you saw what happened last week. Everyone got a little bit excited because he put in a little hot round. And what happened on Friday? Kaput, okay? That's probably what's going to happen this week. He's missed the cut here in like 5 of the last 6 years. These odds are just too low. I need at least plus 10,000.
All right, Reed, in 25 appearances in the event, Mickelson has just 3 top 10s. He's missed the cut 9 stinking times. So what do you think about these odds?
Yeah, like Ulrich is like, I'm never skipping curfew and Ulrich. He's going to give us a lecture on why we shouldn't be skipping off on curfew and getting Phil at this number. But he's right. I mean, I want to disagree with Ulrich as much as possible. But I mean, when you see a guy who tries to hit it through a mesh fence and thinks that it's actually going to get towards the green, which is clearly what he was planning to do, and it doesn't move closer, that's what we do in the course. And now he's doing it. And that's something that, to Ulrich's point, is this is such a precise golf course. You don't need to, even though strokes in off the tee isn't a key metric here, and approach is something that obviously Phil has been good in the past. It just doesn't suit where his game is at. Short game, obviously, he's a short game maven. We consider him one of the best in the PGA history, but at the same time, at this course, and especially with his history, now he goes on there on Monday and says the rough's not too thick, and he's playing with us, seeing if he wants to play or not. Nah, I'm with Jeff here. Plus 7,500 would be more in line with where I want to take Phil.
But his form stepping over that mesh fence, it was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, he's like...
You didn't get the full picture, but that was beautiful.
Yeah, but you know who really likes his legs? That's you, Eisenband. So what do you think about these odds?
I love these legs. And also, I mean, we could look back. Phil's probably complained about the rough or something on every Monday of every tournament.
It's very true.
You know, I think these are too high, and I think that we're talking about Phil Mickelson. Even as much as we say he's struggled. He did win here once, a different Phil in 2007, obviously. But look at what he's done this year. He's won. He's shot a 60 and come in second. Yes, that was on the West Coast. But I mean, in terms of the odds of all of this, how can you say 8,000 plus 8,000 might be the highest odds Phil Mickelson's ever had in his career? I feel like if we really wanted to look back. So I just think this is too much of a disrespect to a legend who's already won this year and won at this course before.
Okay, one of 3 golf segments on this show is now complete. Next time we see you 3, it's going to be for some PGA Chase or Fade.
But first, we're going to help you guys decide who to pay up for on this NBA slate.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash, Antonio Brown is a Raider. Now, the question we're all asking is, how's the fit? Former Oakland quarterback Rich Gannon gives the impression it's a thumbs up. The 2002 NFL MVP played for John Gruden and told NBC Sports' Peter King, John loves these kinds of players. He's got street cred with them. He's done it with Andre Rison, Jerry Rice, Tim Brown, Sterling Sharp, John Jett, Keyshawn Johnson. In Gannon's MVP season, close to 50% of his passing yards were reeled in by 2 players, Rice and Brown. The duo combined for more than 2,100 receiving yards. Gannon also said Gruden will tell Antonio Brown, I'll get you your 1,500 yards, your 120 balls. Here's what you have to do for me. Brown only achieves these kinds of numbers if Derek Carr drastically improves in 2019. Gruden gives Carr a once-in-a-lifetime type of talent on the outside. Let's see what he's got. Carr threw a career-low 19 touchdowns last year. And as far as Brown's position pals, they are an aging Jordy Nelson and a borderline number 3, Seth Roberts. Yeah, Brown's going to have to ball out. He got a trade. He got his money. Should get his targets. Sounds like happiness to me.
We're about a month out from the NBA playoffs, so all these games count for one reason or another. But let's try to focus on tonight's 6-game slate. Here to keep us in line is DK Live's Mark Barner and Garion Thorne, and we got Alex Barutha. Ricklin, not Barutha.
It's all right. We got like
that was really
40 bajillion Alexes on this show.
Yeah, sorry. Alex.
You find people in the back, though. Please hit the space bar button, whatever you hit. Let's roll that beautiful pick and roll animation, please. We're choosing between the top options at each position. Let's get right down to the guards. Both Harden and Westbrook are in action, so both can get you 50, 60, or 70 DK points. Who knows? Who do you like better tonight, Mike?
I'll go with Westbrook. Harden's battling that wrist injury. He was only 7 for 25 from the field in his last game against the Mavericks. The Hornets could be blown out by the Rockets here, which could limit Harden's playing time. The Thunder and Jazz, it projects to be a much closer game, so I like Westbrook's chances for a big night and a great all-around stat line.
Gare Bear, who you like?
I'll probably side with James Harden here, but I'll be honest, I'm not really thrilled about either. I think if I'm looking to build lineups tonight, I'm probably going to take a more balanced approach. I might fade both of these guys, but the Jazz, I know there was that massive performance Westbrook had the last time he faced Utah. That game went into overtime. He scored 80 DraftKings points, but the 2 prior games, he was only averaging 10 points in those contests. He was 7 of 35 from the field. I don't know. I just don't really like how it lines up, considering the Jazz have allowed the fewest assists per game to their opponents, the second fewest rebounds per game to their opponents. The pace concerns me a little, and so does, as Mike mentioned, the blowout potential with Charlotte-Houston, but I'll side Harden, but I'm not really thrilled with either.
Mr. McLean, who is going to get you 50, 60, or 70 DK fantasy points tonight between these two?
So I'm going with Harden. I'm not worried about the pace at all. Both of these teams are very near the middle of the league in terms of pace. The Hornets are trotting out their B squad, their practice unit. They've got pretty much everyone hurt tonight, which might make you think that it's going to be a blowout. But according to Basketball Monsters, they track when a game is a blowout. And the Rockets have won 12 blowouts this season, according to them. And Harden saw at least 30 minutes in 11 of those. He saw at least 32 minutes in 10 of those. So he's still likely to play. The Hornets defense is much worse. The Hornets are much worse at rebounding, and the pace is about the same. So I'm hardened by a considerable margin here.
Okay, Alex, at forward, there are 3 players listed at over 8K. The most expensive, OKC's Paul George at 9,500 at Utah. Then we have Toronto's Kawhi Leonard for 8,600 at Cleveland. Finally, Pistons star Blake Griffin, who's going to cost you 8,300 as Detroit travels to Brooklyn to take on the Nets. So who's the best play out of these 3 here?
He's got the jersey hanging up behind him. I wonder what his answer is
like
going to be.
Griffin, but hey, keep in mind, there is the Kardashian curse. I just need you to think about it, okay?
I'll consider that, but I'm a little bit more worried about Paul George averaging 7 shots in the paint per game, going up against Gobert and Favors. I'm worried about Kawhi. Ever since this whole load management mode has kicked in, he's played 28 minutes or less in 2 of his last 4 games. Give me Blake. He's scored 27 points in 3 of his last 4. Nets are an incredibly average matchup. They rank exactly 15th in defensive rating and rebound percentage, which I thought was kind of neat. And they're actually they're among the better matchups for power forwards in terms of DKFP per game.
Gary, and do you like that matchup for Griffin in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think Blake has got to be the play here. And it is concerning with Kawhi. I mean, the matchup on paper could be fine, but you look at even the last game he played against the Pelicans, you couldn't ask for a more efficient performance in that contest. He was 14 for 20 from the floor, scored 31 points, but he only played 27 minutes. And I could see a very similar game script being used for the Raptors, even on the road against Cleveland, where the Nets are just a volume-based team. Over the last 15 games, they've given up the most rebounds to their opponents. They've given up the most field goal attempts to their opponents. I mean, John Collins tore apart the interior of this defense in their last game when Atlanta took on the Nets. I can really just see Blake Griffin doing similar things in this contest.
Mike, you going to make it 3 for 3 for Blake Griffin here?
No, I'll be the contrarian, I guess.
Thank you.
I'm definitely agreeing to pass on Kawhi Leonard. I don't think he's going to play a lot of minutes. Game's going to get really ugly against the Cavs. So definitely stay away from him. I'll actually go with Paul George. As well as the Pistons have been playing lately, it hasn't exactly translated well for Griffin on the fantasy side. He's scored 37.8 DK points or fewer in 7 of their last 9 games. I think George has the higher floor of the 2, so I'm more comfortable paying up to put him in my lineup.
All right, following back-to-back 60-plus DK point efforts, Drummond managed just 37 fantasy points last night against Chicago. But he's still your most costly center this evening at 9,100. Garion, you pay up for him or you save a little cash with Rudy Gobert at 7-8 with the Jazz hosting the Thunder?
No, I've got no problem using Drummond and using Griffin, even in the same lineups. Like I mentioned, we don't have to base everything off of the last game, but it really just seemed like the Nets in recent weeks and really for the duration of the season have had so much trouble containing interior players. And one of the big reasons for that is their inability. Well, they're not outside the realm of league average on the glass, but again, it's just such a high tempo pace they play at and so many attempts in those games. They just tend to give up a ton of rebounds. And Drummond in his 2 previous matchups against the Nets this season has had 20-20 performances in both of those games. It was a long time ago, but it's still something we've become very used to seeing Andre Drummond do. I just think that in that particular setting, against a team that is allowing more points in the paint, opponent points in the paint, than any other team in the Eastern Conference, I think it sets up really well for both Drummond and Griffin.
All right, Big Mike, Drummond or Gobert?
Yeah, this is not the night to pinch pennies at center. Pay up for Drummond. As Garion mentioned, in the 2 previous games against the Nets, averaged 24 points and 21.5 rebounds. He's just going to crush them tonight. Don't overthink it. Pay up for Drummond.
All right, Alex, you're not overthinking it, are you?
Nope, I'm also going with Drummond. Gobert has gotten the better of Steven Adams in their last 2 matchups, but the head-to-head history for Adams versus Gobert is somewhat ugly for Gobert. Meanwhile, Drummond has put up at least 15 points and 15 rebounds in 4 straight, 10 of his last 13. He last night was just the second time all season that he didn't get either a steal or a block. He usually gets about 6 DraftKings points per game from those 2 categories. So yeah, last night was weird. We're sticking with Drummond.
All right, good stuff, guys. You'll be back in a little bit for News of the Night, Tears of Joy as well. That's after we hit hockey with the slate breaker himself, Mr. Ben Wyman.
But before all of that, our very own Reed Fowler has a course preview for you. What a treat.
How's it, golf fans? Reed Fowler for our next DK Live PGA course preview in the first big tournament this season, the Players Championship at famed TPC Sawgrass. Players has been held in May in recent history, but now moves back to March, where it was scheduled for 33 tournaments before its recent change in 2007. The course is a par 72 and will play just over 7,100 yards. Past winners here include Siwoo Kim, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, and Tiger Woods, both who are questionable at this moment with injuries, as well as last year's champ Webb Simpson, who went wire to wire, beating the closest player by 4 strokes. The stadium course is one of the most famed and potentially one of the most difficult P-Dye designs. On paper, it doesn't stack up as one of the toughest, only playing as the 29th hardest course. Other P-Dye design courses like Harbortown ranked 10 spots tougher last season, but the prestige that follows with the win here also comes with some pressure. The course recorded the 3rd most eagles, 5th most birdies, but also the 11th most bogeys last season. The greens here will be Bermuda grass, but with overseed this week to make sure they get the right color of green to pop on 4K TVs. But it's obviously not just the colors of the course, which will get the attention of the golfers, but also the nuance of each hole. This is a classic design trait from Pete Dye where no 2 holes are alike. There are par 4s over 450 yards right after par 4s under 400 yards and dogleg rights after dogleg lefts on back-to-back holes. The course demands attention on every shot, maybe why some guys like Mickelson haven't done well here in the past, missing the cut 4 of the last 5 times he's played at Sawgrass. So key strokes for me this week are strokes gained par 4, gaining strokes around the green, and strokes gained approach. Xander Schauffele is setting up to having a solid week at Sawgrass. Although he lost close to 5 strokes around the green in Mexico, he's gained over 2 strokes around the greens on average over the last 4 tournaments before then, and over the last 24 rounds, he ranks 11th in strokes gained par 4, 6th in strokes gained putting, and 15th in strokes gained approach.
According to the DraftKings NHL cheat sheet, there are 7 games on tonight's hockey slate, and it features a couple dynamic matchups. And here to confirm all of this is DK Live editor Ben Wyman, the slate breaker. Do you have confirmation, Benjamin?
I do. I have confirmation. There are 7 games tonight.
Wow.
With dynamic games on the slate.
Oh, yes. Very dynamic.
Precisely.
Okay.
Always dynamic.
Can confirm. All right. Good to know. So let's dive a little deeper here. It's NHL opening face-off, choosing between the top options at each position. So it's one of those nights at center. The Leafs are in action against Tampa, so you got to choose between their top 2 centers, John Tavares at 7,400 or Austin Matthews at 7,000 in what is expected to be a high-scoring affair. Dynamic. Who's the one here, Ben?
First off, I don't know if it's going to be a high-scoring affair.
What?
We got 2 Stanley Cup contenders. You know, these are teams that are it's going to be a playoff atmosphere tonight in Toronto. I expect both teams to play tight. The Leafs just got Nazem Kadri back. He's one of the better 2-way centers in the league. So I don't know if I'd expect a lot of goals. If you're making me pick, though, I kind of like Austin Matthews. His price is down to 7,000, which is great. He still has that ceiling to go off for a hat trick. His ownership will be down, though. I think a lot of lineups will be on the Flyers tonight at home against the Senators. So yeah, Austin Matthews hasn't scored in 6 games. He's a bit in a bit of a drought right now. John Tavares is playing a lot better. Maybe I go lean with him in cash games. But yeah, Austin Matthews is a pretty good GPP play tonight. I really like him in tournaments just because obviously he has that ceiling where he can pop at any time. And yeah, the ownership's going to be down.
In the wing department, and sticking to that game, you got Tampa's Nikita Kucherov, 7,700. Is he worth it? Oh, as I almost dropped that. Or would you rather save a little and go with someone like Cam Atkinson, who's $800 cheaper and coming off a 10 DK fantasy point performance, which is pretty impressive for hockey?
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. I mean, Kucherov is always worth it, though, right? He's arguably the best player in the league right now. Unless his price jumps up past like 8,000, I mean, he's pretty much in play on every slate. But yeah, I like Atkinson a ton tonight for a lot of the same reasons I mentioned with Matthews. I think he'll probably go overlooked on the road versus a tough defensive team in the Islanders. But actually, the Islanders have been shaky at home. 28 goals allowed in their past 11 home games. That's almost 3 per game. Atkinson's still moderately priced at 6,900, but his line mates are way down. Artemi Panarin is 5,800. Pierre-Luc Dubois is 4,600. I can't remember the last time those two have been priced that low. And again, this is a line that has a very high ceiling. These guys can pop. It really doesn't matter the matchup. So in a tournament, a line like this that's, you know, low owned, not going to cost you a ton, that's sort of what you're looking for. So yeah, I like Atkinson as a one-off play, or even if you want to stack him with his line mates.
All right, back on the blue line, Colorado's Tyson Barrie has been solid over his last 3 games. He's going to cost 5.8 against Carolina. So how much do you like him, or should you save money? Roster Chicago's Brent Seabrook at 4,900. He's playing the Coyotes.
Yeah, I'm not really crazy about Tyson Barrie tonight. Tyson Barrie's a power play specialist. They're facing the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have one of the best penalty kills in the league. Barry's gotten almost half of his points this season on the power play. As for Seabrook, yeah, I'm not really looking at him too much. He's not on my radar. I like 2 of his teammates, though. Eric Gustafsson and Duncan Keith are in pretty good spots. Gustafsson's going to cost you a little bit more, but he's on the power play 1. Much better point producer. As far as Keith, 4,600, so cheaper than Seabrook. Keith should skate a lot more ice time than Seabrook. That's the problem with Seabrook. His ice time isn't high. He's got a little goal scoring upside, and maybe you look at him because his ownership will probably be pretty low compared to those 2 other guys. But yeah, I don't know if you can take him at 4,900. There are way better plays. 3 Flyers defensemen, Shane Gostisbehere, Ivan Provorov, and Travis Sanheim are all in that 5K range, which is great. So yeah, I'd probably fading Seabrook tonight.
Manning the crease on this 7-game slate is 14 men, so plenty of options to choose from. Who's your top play between the pipes, Benjamin?
Yeah, going back to the Hurricanes, I really like Peter Mrazek tonight. He's at 7,400. The Canes have been a really good road team this season. They just recently beat the Predators in Nashville, which isn't easy. Their past 10 road games, 8-1-1. They've outscored opponents 38-22 in those games. Mrazek has won 5 straight, 3 on the road. His price obviously down, so that's sort of what you're looking for. There are a lot of decent goalies tonight that are priced down. Brian Elliott for the Flyers is another guy, 7,300 against the Sens at home. That's a pretty smash spot. But yeah, I think Mrazek's ownership will be down. The game means way more for the Hurricanes. They're in a tight race in the Metropolitan Division, so I like the Canes tonight, and I like Mrazek to get it done.
Okay, time to hit us with your slate-approved pick. Who is your lock of the night?
Oh. Christian Dvorak, 100. The Coyotes tonight versus the Blackhawks on the road. That second line for Arizona has been great. Clayton Keller and Richard Panik. A lot of former Blackhawks tonight on the Coyotes back in Chicago, so a bit of a narrative going into there. Plus, Coyotes are fighting for a playoff spot, which is very rare nowadays. Dvorak's way underpriced. He's skating a lot of ice time. He's coming off 2 goals the other night against the Kings, so yeah, I like him as a cheap flyer. I think he gets the puck in the net tonight.
That is the goal.
That's why we have you here. Thanks a lot.
See what you did there.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for all the advice. We appreciate it, young man.
As always. But now, oh my God.
What?
Golf is back, and our panelists are back as well. That would be Reed, Jeff, and Jeff with a J.
In this segment, we're playing PGA Chase or Fade. You guys know the drill. Agree or disagree with the following statement. Reed, the Players' Championship is returning to its roots, teeing off in March instead of May. The first 33 editions of the Players started in the month of St. Patrick's Day before being pushed back later into the spring. Sorry, I had to burp. So Chase or Fade, that the earlier start makes for a harder course this weekend.
So first we got potentially Jessie shaving your back hair, and then you got a burp, just firing on all cylinders.
Let's go. Please don't make me do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna chase this. Going back to the question. One of the 2 reasons. One, I think when you look at golfers, they're obviously creatures of habit. They like to set their own schedules. It doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but if you look at some of these guys, especially the shorter hitters too, I think it's going to play a little bit tougher for them. It's going to be a little more damp than it usually is, so it's not going to be as dry. So the distance in terms of what they'd be able to do, it's not a long course, but it's definitely going to give an advantage to the longer hitters who can just obviously hit shorter irons, driving metals off the tee, keep it in the fairway, and then get on these greens. If you just look at the raw stats, when it's held in March, it's been harder than when it's been held in May. Just look at rounds under 63, 0 in March, and 6 when it's been held in May. And so scoring averages, everything, when you look at ease of course, it's been held in May. So I will think it'll be playing a little bit more difficult in March.
All right, being a Floridian here, Jeff with a J, I can confirm winds are stronger this time of year.
Wow, great.
Was that Jeff with a J or Jeff with a G?
Yeah, Jeff with a G just wanted to get in there, but it is Jeff with a J.
I just wanted to jump in because that was such a dumb statement by Emerson. But no, go ahead.
I want to hear Jeff with a G first.
No. It's your turn. It's
no. Jeff with a G.
This was bound to happen eventually because I can't. I'm so impatient. But please take your turn.
I'll add to what Reed is saying a little bit. Because I think that it's not necessarily the creatures of habit as much as moving up to March, guys haven't played as much, and especially the European players. I talked about this last week. A lot of guys are now coming over. Guys that started the season on the European tour are now playing a little bit here. Here's a stat for you. Before 2007, when it moved from March to May, only one European, shout out to Sandy Lyle, had ever won the Players. 3 have won since. So I think that legitimately matters for players who are getting back acclimated on American soil.
Hey, Ulrich, early forecast calling for weekend rain and double-digit mile-per-hour winds.
Look, buddy, you did hit on a good point because it's the climate, right? It's not as warm in March as it is in May. Newsflash, I know, big stuff here. But look, the wind forecast for this week isn't good. I mean, it's 14 miles per hour winds, 15 mile per hour winds on Thursday, and then it's getting cold. It's going to be like highs of mid-60s for Florida on the weekend. So this is going to lead to tougher conditions. It just is. So I chase this for sure. I think you're going to see most additions that come in March here coming up are going to play a little bit tougher. Obviously, it's going to be year to year because, last year we saw it was in pristine condition. The Webb Simpson was able to go after pins, but I think this year it's going to play a lot tougher.
Well, speaking of Webb Simpson, he is last year's champion. So he's played in 6 tournaments this season, making the cut in each with 2 top 10 finishes. So Jeff with the G, chase or fade that Simpson makes the top 10 this weekend.
Yeah, I got to fade this. Look, Webb Simpson will always have a place in my heart for his dominant win last year. It was one of the most profitable weekends of my life. But look, he's not getting it done with the putter the way he has the last few years, or last year at this time, basically. He's 92nd, I think 92nd in strokes gained putting. If you look at his stats here last year, he basically just roasted the sport with the putter. He was just sinking it from everywhere. He was like Chevy Chase in Caddyshack. So that's not going to happen again. It doesn't mean he can't finish in the top 10, but if you're asking me where he's going to finish, it's probably going to be closer to the top 30 or top 45. He's not playing horribly. He does not have the putter rolling, not the same confidence. So I'll fade that.
Yeah, Reed, I mean, he won last year, but he hadn't recorded a top 10 win there until then.
Yeah, just historically, if you look at this tournament, guys who have won just over the past 5 years, the best finish was Martin Keimer in 2012, 2013 as a T56. All these other guys either missed a cut, finish, I think, above 60th. So it's really tough to go back-to-back here. If you just look at the top 10, only 3 guys over that same time frame, which is Francesco, Rory, and I believe Sergio, who have done it from year to year, 2014, 2015 for Sergio and Rory. And then you look at Francesco, 16 to 17. So even if you're in the top 10, this is a course that's really difficult to go back-to-back. And Jeff's right. Even though Webb does red out nicely for approach and around the greens, his putting is really failing him right now. So I got him outside the top 10, but I just think in terms of the surfaces that he likes, Bermuda is his favorite. So I think he can sneak inside the top 20 here.
Jeff with the J.
I'll disagree. I'll throw him into the top 10. I'll give some confidence to Webb Simpson coming back to the place that he really did burn to the ground last year. And on top of that, it wasn't just the putter. He was, he had even a chip in. I know that doesn't exactly help my case, but the point being, his precision was outstanding last year. I think it's the same this year. I think that he hasn't missed a cut, remember, since the Travelers Championship. So in terms of wavering a little bit, maybe not quite as hot as last year, but I like the fact that he played in the Honda, sat the Arnold Palmer, and now seems ready to go for TPC Sawgrass.
Rory McIlroy has finished in the top 6 in his last 5 tournaments.
Wow,
Wasn't great on Sunday, but still finished T6. Reed, chase or fade that he finally breaks through though and gets that win at the Players' Championship this weekend?
I'm going to fade. I'm going to take the field. This is one of the strongest fields that we have so far, but I will chase that he out of the top guys. So DJ Brooks, I think he has obviously the best chance. And we've seen it, like you mentioned, over his last, 5 or 6 events. He's just, for him, it's probably underachieving, but for us in the DFS and obviously in the betting world, getting these, if we got top 5s on this guy or whatever it may be, has been pretty profitable. But if you just look at what he's been able to do, gaining strokes and all key strokes gain metrics over his last 3 tournaments, and if you just kind of rate that out over the last 5 tournaments, he's missed strokes gained around the green or putting by less than a stroke. He's gaining strokes in all of these key metrics. And since 2012, only Webb Simpson is the guy who not all 5 of these key metrics, right? Strokes gained approach off the tee, around the green, putting, tee to green, Only Webb is a guy since 2012 that hasn't done that. Every single winner since then has gained in all of these key metrics. So I'm going to fade. I'm going to take the field, but I'm going to chase he has the best chance at the elite.
All right, Ulrich, if you had Roy in your DraftKings lineups over the past 5 starts, he's certainly been a net positive for you. Will he be a net positive again, possibly win this week? You're on mute, buddy.
I'm back. I'm here.
Okay.
I said last week if he didn't win at the Arnold Palmer, he's probably going to win at TPC Sawgrass, right? So I kind of want to go back on that because I just don't think he's got the game. I just don't think he's scrambling well enough, and that's what TPC Sawgrass makes you do. You have to have a good week scrambling. You have to have a good week around the greens and on the greens. I just don't know if Rory is quite there. I feel like this might actually be the spot where he takes a dive back the other way and maybe just has an off week. So I'm going to fade it too. I know it's going against what I said last week, but I'm going to fade Rory winning. I think that this is just too unpredictable an event, and I don't like it.
Yeah, Eisenband missed the cut last year, but 4 top 12s here.
Last week, I took Roy to win confidently on this show. I put up a 1, and going into Sunday, I really thought I was going to be right.
Yep.
And he just didn't perform on Sunday. But Emerson, I like what you were saying about if you've played him in your lineup before, because I'm looking at Rory as the basketball equivalent of the golf equivalent of James Harden right now, that it's almost like you feel like you have to keep playing him because he just keeps hovering around the top 5 week in, week out. I feel like he's playing the Pacers at TPC Sawgrass. It does not fit his game in terms of that precision that we talked about. He needs to bomb the ball down the fairway, but I'd still play him. I just will fade these odds in terms of him actually winning.
Okay, let's mark the tape, though. Jeff saying he'd like the point that I made, so I appreciate that. You guys rock, though. We'll see you in the final block of the show for PGA pin placement.
Plus, we'll have our NBA panel back, but first, here's Pat Mayo with even more on the players.
Jason Day at 40-1, man. Some people told me this back injury that he has is going to keep him out 6 months. It looks like he's going to play this week as of right now. What do you do with Jason Day at 40-1? It's such a big number.
If last week he was actually injured, but this week he's just Jason Day injured, then I want to almost play it. But I don't know. You can't bet Tiger and Day. You're asking for.
There's a DraftKings lineup for you. Start your team with Day and Tiger. No one else has the guts for that. And the other one is
so tempting because Day,
isn't it?
Day, oh my God. If he showed even not winning last week, but was fine, and he was 22-1 this week, I'd probably really be considering it. Because of the elite players, his game, I feel like can handle this place the best.
Yes, only because, that's why I think Justin Thomas really leaps out here too. The underrated sneaky part of this course is where the greens are so small. You need to have a good up and down game. And Jason Day from around the greens is immaculate. How do you think Si Woo ended up winning here? It's the touch around the greens. He's very good from greenside. So is Hideki. So is Poulter. So is Casey. There's a reason that I'm on these guys. Justin Thomas from the very top end is the best, but Day might be the best short game player on tour. And that gives him a significant advantage. And we know he can roll it once he gets it going. He's consistently been one of the best putters on tour. You just have to think that it's a great spot to leverage expectation. I don't necessarily know in the betting market if that's a way that you want to do it, because 40-1 is still, it's not a short number by any means. It's a big number for Jason Day, but it's still inside the top 20 of overall numbers. DraftKings-wise, I think where Jason Day becomes super interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. That's why people need to tune in on Tuesday. I'll ask Raza and I'll ask Rick, see if they have a better feel for it. But it's so scary to jump into that water with Jason Day based on doing it last week and seeing the results, that he just might go unowned. And I think that if he is going to go unowned, you don't need to commit all your lineups to it.
He's on the range today hitting balls.
Just see it. He did that last week too. And I think people forget that he started last week. It's not like he withdrew 2 minutes before his round started. He played 6 holes. And he was like, screw it, I don't feel great.
Well, much like the Tiger line, I feel there's only one direction it can go.
First or last?
Especially no,
it only goes down.
If he shows up again at the course tomorrow and is on the range, he's probably down to 30-1. Tiger, if he's on the range this afternoon, by the time this posted, it could be 22-1.
I just checked 5 minutes ago. I checked 25 minutes ago and 5 minutes ago on Tiger. It has not moved yet.
Okay. He's been spotted on the grounds in that big cat walk, backwards hat, shades.
Hitting on waitresses in the clubhouse?
I don't know if Tiger's been on the course or the range yet, but that Jason Day number is very intriguing.
Let's do this basketball thing one more time. DK Live's Mike Barner, Gary Thorne, and Alex Rickleen have returned to help us out with tonight's tiers contest.
And slow your roll, my little chinchilla. Before tiers, how about any late-breaking lineup or injury news you guys are looking at that people need to know before building their rosters this evening? Garion?
It's funny, I'm not actually really focused on anything too much, but the entire day I was waiting to hear the news that Kyle Lowry wasn't going to play tonight. And it seems like he is. So, no, there's nothing really catching my eye right now. But I'm just so focused on this tiers contest that maybe my attention can't be drawn elsewhere.
Apparently your internet's very focused in on it as well. It's not ideal this evening. Alex, any news that we need to be aware of here?
Well, obviously the biggest news is Dante Exum returning to action for the first time since January 5th. Marcus Gasol will start for the Raptors. His salary is down to $4,500. His last Raptors start wasn't great, but he averaged 36 DKFB in his first 3 Raptors starts, so that's kind of interesting. And Frank Kaminsky he will be playing while the rest of the Hornets will not be. MKG is already out, Zeller is already out, Marvin Williams is already out, and Jeremy Lamb, I believe, is probably out still. Bismack Biyombo will return, but Kaminsky looks to be in a solid spot there.
Big Mike, what can you add to that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Alex more on Frank Kaminsky tonight. The one thing that, luckily, most of the injury news has already come out, which is great, rarity. One of the big ones was Jason Tatum's going to be out for the Celtics. They're playing the Clippers. That should be a fast-paced game. So I like Marcus Morris more in that game without Tatum.
Okay. So now we can roll that Tears of Joy open. There we go. There we go. Now let's go ahead and drop down to Tier 5. Who's your pick and why, Mike?
If you're looking for a safe option, Ingles might be your guy. However, I'd roll the dice on Bobby Portis. This should be a great game, high-scoring game between the Wizards and Kings. They're both in the top 8 in the league in pace of play. Portis has scored at least 41 DK points in 3 of his last 4 games, and he's never shy about jacking up shots. So look for him to get going in this game.
Alex, who do you like and why?
Spencer Dinwiddie. I like the matchup against Reggie Jackson, who is by far the worst D rating amongst Pistons rotation players. So that's a great spot for the Nets to attack the Pistons. Dinwiddie took a little bit to gear back up after missing 14 games with a thumb injury, but he is up to 30 minutes in back-to-back games with 44 and 45.5 GKFB in those 2. So I like Dinwiddie.
Okay. Now, who do we like? Gary and he's not frozen. He doesn't like to be frozen. Okay.
I don't know. It's been pretty bad today. Sorry about this, guys. But
spoke too soon.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that Joe Ingles is intriguing. He's averaging 15.5 potential assists across their last 8 games. Maybe Exum cuts into that a little bit. But Bobby Portis is just so hard to ignore. That game's implied total is massive. And the Kings have struggled with interior players all season long. They've given up a ton of made field goals inside 5 feet this season. They've given up the most opponent rebounds per game of any team in the NBA for the entirety of 2018-19. It really does seem like a dream spot for Portis.
To the bottom tier in this contest, Tier 6, the tier of the working man. Tell me, Garion, who's worthy of landing on your roster?
Let's go back to this Wizards-Kings game. I think the decision comes down to Satoransky or Willie Cauley-Stein. And while I haven't loved Willie Cauley-Stein's usage since, a couple trades went down, a couple new faces like Harrison Barnes in town, but we saw this on Saturday night with Bobby Portis getting the minutes he's getting. Not a great defensive player, and he's the starting center. He's super undersized. Karl-Anthony Towns ate him alive for 35 minutes. Now, Karl-Anthony Towns is another caliber of player than Willie Cauley-Stein, but I just think in a game this up-tempo with as little defense is going to be played, I think Willie Cauley-Stein can have a big night tonight.
Alex, who you like?
So I'm taking a sort of strategic approach here. Between injuries and Gasol entering the starting lineup for the Raptors, this field is pretty narrow. There are pretty much only 4 guys that people are going to be choosing between, and 2 of those 4 are in the Kings-Wizards game with the gigantic 240 over-under. So I think almost everyone's going to be on either Satoransky or Willie Cauley-Stein. So I'm going to go with Harrell for a little bit of differentiation. He's got the highest average DKFP amongst the tier, which is never really a bad sign. But I'm mostly just trying to differentiate myself a little bit from the pack here.
Okay, Mike, differentiate yourself from the pack as well, please.
I'm pretty close with Garion. To me, it came down to Satoransky and Cauley-Stein, but I'll go on the other side of the two. I like Satoransky. I feel like he just got a higher minutes floor. I worry a little bit about Harry Giles. If he gets going, he can steal some minutes away from Cauley-Stein. So I feel more comfortable with Satoransky.
Okay, before we let you guys go, how about that slate approved pick for this entire 6-game slate? Mike, who's it going to be?
Yeah, I just can't pass up Andre Drummond. It's going to be a close game. These two teams are battling for the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The Nets are just awful against centers. I feel like Drummond's a lock for at least 15 points and 15 rebounds, and another 2020 night could also be on the horizon.
Garion, slate approved.
Yeah, it's Drummond. 2020 number 13 is coming tonight.
Okay, finally, we're clean. Slate approved pick time. Who's it going to be?
Frank Kaminsky, Frank the Tank. There are no other Hornets big men. He's scored at least 15 points in 4 of his last 5. And that was playing, 23, 21 minutes. He's going to be playing 48 minutes in 2 positions. I don't know how they're going to play the full game. He's just such an absurd value at 4,400.
Very contrarian slate approved pick. Nice job, guys, all of you. You'll see Reed, Jeff, and Jeff one final time after this.
Hey, I'm Tara Lenizak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Taking a look at the NBA Showdown contest tonight as the Los Angeles Clippers host the Boston Celtics. Boston has put on a surprise showing during their West Coast trip, winning 3 straight, but LA is even hotter, coming in with a 4-game win streak. Let's highlight a player who has been hot lately and worth rostering in Lou Williams. With Tobias Harris gone, Williams has had more minutes and opportunities to run the offense, and clearly it's been working for them. He had his second 40-point game of the season Friday against the Thunder, adding 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals in 34 minutes. This marks his 28th game with at least 30 points off the bench. He produced 65 DK points in that game and is averaging 33 fantasy points per game this year. The Clippers currently sit at 8th in the Western Conference and are proving that they could make some noise in the playoffs, which means there will be continued playing time for the vet. We'll see tonight whose winning streak will be broken at the Staples Center. Tip-off is set for 10:30.
Final block of the program, no better way to end it than with our golf guys, DK Live's Rick Fowler, Jeff Ulrich, plus DFS expert Jeff Eisenman.
All right, as promised, it's PGA Pin.
What is
Grow up, you two.
We need you to predict.
Just tell us what's so funny, please.
It's not appropriate. I'll be fired.
Yeah. So please.
That's the smartest thing Emerson has said.
That's great in both respects.
Please, Jeff, don't ask him, please. Okay.
Please.
So we need you to predict the finishing place of these golfers. Okay, you know the drill. Reed, start us off here with DJ.
Yeah, I'm going to say top 5, even though he's bested as just the top 12 here at TPC Sawgrass. Like Dustin Johnson is obviously one of the best in the world, ranked in that top spot. And maybe at his price tag, you can just look at DK lineups that he's just going to go kind of over-own. But for his standards and for our standards, not playing up to snuff for what we're used to. But this guy is great. He's great off the tee. He can hit his 3-wooders driving iron as far as he wants it. He can hit his approach shots close. And when he gets that putter going, he's one of the best in the game. So I got top 5 here. Not the best with stroke gain approach. He's 32nd in the last 24 rounds. That does scare me a little bit because these are smaller greens. And you're going to need to be pretty good around the greens. That scares me a little bit, but I'm going to say top 5.
All right, Jeff with the G, Paulina Gretzky's husband. Where is he going to finish?
Oh, that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dustin's kind of figured out TPC Sawgrass the last couple of years. T17, T12. It's an interesting scenario here because it's not really a course that you think sets up well for him. But we've seen, a guy like Phil come through here once, and I could see Dustin winning this event one year. And this might be his year. He's 9th in strokes gained putting. He's 5th in tee to green. He's also really high up in like around the green stats, strokes gained around the green. He might have that sharpness to his game right now to actually contend this year. And I'm probably just going to side with Reed and just say top 5. But it wouldn't shock me if he won either because again, you get with these elite players, even if the setup isn't exactly perfect for them, it can definitely still come through. So I'm expecting a big week from DJ. I'll say top 5.
11,400, Jeff. He's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, I just don't think, as we're talking about it, this course bodes well for him. I think we're overthinking it a little bit. He obviously is coming off the win in Mexico. He has been playing well, but I just see so much water, and I see the way that DJ hits it. I'm putting him top 15 because I think he's playing that well, but I'm not confident about him in that top 10, top 5 range.
Ulrich, what about Ricky Fowler here? Recent winner at the Waste Management. What else? Co-runner-up at the Honda.
Yeah, look, Ricky's Mr. Florida. He loves Florida. He likes this course, obviously. He's been boom or bust here over his career, but, I mean, you see the upside when he gets going on this Bermuda grass. And I think he's still in good enough form. He might be hitting a bit of a wall here. He's played a lot lately, but I think he's got one more good week in him. I'm going to say T10 here for Ricky. I think he's going to make for a nice DraftKings pick. Maybe a little bit lower owned just because he's got so many missed cuts on his record here, but he obviously still has that upside as a past winner. So I like Ricky this week. I'm going to say top 10.
Yeah, Eisenband won this thing in 2015, T2, 2012. So what do you think this year?
Yeah, past winner, past runner-up. I think Jeff answered, everything. Mr. Florida right there. I have him at a T8. He's been a little erratic this year, a little unpredictable, but this seems to be a course that when he's got to go in, he's got to go in. And I think he comes in with some confidence, T8.
Reed, so we talked about some of the success he's had here, but 5 missed cuts and 9 appearances at TPC. It's almost the epitome of what's possible here.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of trepidation in these guys' voice, so I'm going to actually put it on tape and say I think he's one of the top guys who has the potential to miss a cut here. And when you look at Ricky, obviously I love Ricky, and he has a good course history here.
Cousin Ricky.
I know my cousin Ricky, I wish. But look, I mean, 3 of the last 5 tournaments, he's lost strokes off the tee. 2 of the last 5 lost strokes approach. And when you try to bank on a guy who's gaining and making cuts and winning too, quite frankly, he's won a tournament all on strokes gained putting. If that flips even half of what he's been doing, and if you look at where he's done well in this past year, he's gaining 4 to 9 strokes putting, whether it's at Waste Management or these other courses where he's coming runner up. It's just, when you look at that and you just look at what he's been able to do so far, it scares you a little bit. Not to say that he can't come here and get what these guys are saying, a top 10, top 5, but I got him around 30th, just because if that putting, especially here on Bermuda, these fast greens, if he doesn't have that up to snuff, then it's a pretty tough course to play at.
All right, what about John Rahm here, Reed? I know I heard you talking about him earlier. You thought he was pretty bad here.
Yeah, the last 2 years hasn't done that well. I got him at top 25. Obviously, this guy is, we know his runner-up or his top 5 statistics over the last 50 tournaments. He's amazing at getting top 5s. And just when he was in college at ASU, he actually practiced at a Pete Dye course. Now, that doesn't translate to what we have here at Sawgrass, but he's been known to say that he likes a course like this. Now, does that translate? No, because he hasn't done, I think, better than a 63rd or like the mid-50s. But when you look at a guy like Rahm, who, again, can get pretty erratic around the greens and get pretty emotional around the greens, if he's not putting well, that can be the case where he gets another top 50 or top 60. But I think he's hitting his irons too well, so top 25 for me.
Where are you going on this one, Jeff, with a J?
I think that, as Reed just mentioned, his last 2 times, I think his only 2 times at the Players, a T72 and a T63. I put him exactly at that T25 because I think he's a better player than he was, but I don't think this lines up with him. He might say he likes Florida courses, but he's really Mr. Southwest. I think it's one of his favorite regions, Southwest,
okay.
The American Southwest. But so I have John Rahm at T25.
T25, Joff, what do you think?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, John Rahm is just, he's been a pretty easy fade in most of these elite events. Like, if you look back at he does have a lot of nice wins. He's top 5 in events over in Europe and stuff like that. But you look at his major record and stuff like that, like he's not done well at these big, like, flagship events. And the Players is no different. I mean, miscut T63. Like, he was a kind of a disgrace here last year. He blew up around the greens a couple times. I could see that happening again. At the same time, this guy, he is going to mature at some point, and he's going to figure these types of courses out. And I think John Rahm is coming in this year with some pretty solid form. He's been solid through the whole year. So I think somewhere in the top 25 makes a lot of sense. I think he's going to make for an interesting GPP play because most people are just going to straight up avoid him after what happened last year. So.
Yeah, to Jeff's point, you look at the Open Championship, U.S. Open, missed cuts, but then PGA and the Masters, 2 top 5s.
He did do well at the Masters last year.
Yeah.
Reed Muffin, Xander Schauffele. FedEx Cup leader right now, kid.
Yes, thank you, Emerson. Croissant. No, that was a bad joke. Top five, I think, look, top five are a win for Xander. I mean, if you're listening to my course preview, I really like Xander this week. What scares you again about Xander is last year, his around the green, his putting was really bad, especially not on POA. So Bermuda, when you look at Bent, just not a good putter, but he's gaining strokes around the green. We've seen him gain strokes putting, and we see when this guy plays well. We saw him win at Tournament of Champions. Now, it's not a full field, but pretty elite when it comes to obviously the top guys that came in 2018. So I really like Xander this week.
Okay, you stop talking. I will go to Jeff now. Jeff Ulrich. What do you think here, partner?
I'm going to predict a bad week for Xander. It's not that I don't like the player. I think he's got a lot of potential, especially in the majors this year. But I'm going to predict a miscut here. Bermuda has not been his best surface for putting. I know he came in here and shocked everyone with the runner-up last year, but I just think that kind of performance is going to be hard to top. And I just feel like this is a course where you get ahead of yourself. You say, oh, I finished second here last year. Now I can go for the win. That's where TPC Sawgrass will bite you. So I'm going to predict a miscut for Xander. Again, nothing against the player. I'm really high on him for the PGA Championship, but I'm going to predict a miscut here this week.
Eisenband, but inexperience really isn't a weakness, though, right now with this guy. Is it T2 as a first timer?
I have
here?
a top 5, and he's coming off 5 straight top 25 performances. And in terms of surprising people with a tied for second, he was Rookie of the year before, won twice, including the Tour Championship. So I think this lines up as we were talking about. And Reed, I couldn't hear your preview, but I saw Xander Schauffele there. He's one of my top plays this week because I think, like that Molinari and Simpson, like we were talking about, he lines up with that precision game. And not to get too narrative, but I feel this mirror image of Justin Thomas 2 years ago when he was really arguably the last man cut from the Ryder Cup and came out and just had an incredible season. I think that Xander's got a chip on his shoulder this year. He won the first tournament of the year. I think he's going to have a breakout season. If that's not, I don't even think that's a surprise to anyone. I just think he's going to have a great season.
By the way, for anyone unfamiliar with the region, Ponte Vedra, right outside Jacksonville, the new home now for quarterback Nick Foles, Jeff
There
Ulrich.
we go.
Yeah.
I know you're very excited about that.
Very excited.
St. Nick Duval.
St. Nick, one of his many nicknames.
Well, welcome to Wintersville.
That's right.
All right, guys, we gotta go. We gotta wrap this thing up. This is The Sweat. Thank you, guys. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. We will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. and we know that you will be too.
Hopefully.